Hello everyone and welcome to the Waynesburg Effect. I'm Ryan Schwertfeger here alongside Tyler McCoy and Mitchell Ross. If you haven't watched the show before, each panelist will bring up a current event topic that has an effect on the nation, the community, or even us as college students. Each panelist will get an opportunity to give their opinion on the issue at hand, and we may even engage in a friendly debate on the topic. All of us have our own opinions, but we do our best to make sure that what we say is backed up with facts so that you, the viewer, can not only be more informed, but also capable to form your own opinions on how the topic that we discuss affects you, your family, and your friends. You are watching The Waynesburg Effect. One of the greatest modern debates in American culture and law goes to the issue of privacy versus security. On this show alone, we've discussed this overreaching topic numerous times when it comes to drones or terrorists or remembering what happened to our country on 9/11. The most current offshoot of this debate has gotten many more Americans interested and personally invested in the discussion than ever before. Currently, computer giant Apple and the US government are battling in court over what the government can tell Apple to do in regards to their technology and phone features. The government is asking Apple to hack into one of their iPhones to disable a feature so authorities can examine the phone for information. Information potentially regarding terroristic information, as the government seeks to break into the password-protected phone of one of the San Bernardino shooters. Apple, on the other hand, says that the government cannot force them to create what they call a backdoor to their product and security features because then it could enable hackers to compromise the security and privacy of iPhones of other law-abiding Americans. Both sides are currently going back and forth in different courts of law. So I'm going to start off with you, Mitch. As a consumer, and I know you have an iPhone,
Yes, sir.
How do you feel as an iPhone consumer about this whole Apple versus the government debate?
Well, it's definitely an interesting back and forth, looking at both sides. The government saying Apple's a, quote, vicious guard dog of American national security, and they're hurting what the security could be. And Apple says that the government is attacking consumer privacy. For me, when thinking about it, when I bought the iPhone, I wasn't thinking, no one reads the terms and conditions, but I guess in that, Apple gives me that privacy agreement. And looking at that, I went on to look at more of the information on the Apple website. And it's interesting that when it comes to the security and requesting information that the government asks from Apple, from their customers, only 6% of the requests that Apple get actually involve the government saying we need information. The other 94 is just like, hey, help me find a lost device or something. But within that 6%, only 27% of those additional requests are actually disclosed by Apple. So that means that 0.00673%, I know that's just a very minuscule number of actual Apple customers have been affected by the government wanting the information. That, to me, that's not really a big deal, but it's still some people. And so this issue is important. Apple went on to say on their website, transparency and dialogue are the best ways to find a solution. Well, that's what's going on in Congress right now.
So as an iPhone user, how do you feel personally? Do you think that the government should be able to do this on this occasion, or do you feel that as a iPhone user yourself?
I feel like you're repeating the question, which means I obviously was beating around the bush on the answer. So I honestly, I don't know. I can see both sides of it. I haven't had time to formulate an opinion. I'm a busy college student here. So I feel like I can see both sides. Interesting to hear what Tyler McCoy has to say about this.
Well, yeah, so Mitch hasn't made up his mind yet what's more important, privacy or security, as someone who has an iPhone.
I will add that I saw a great quote that says this issue is more about security versus security because it could affect the future, but I'll let you get more into that.
Sure, but so now I'm going to go to Tyler. If you're the government in this point of view, understanding why they want to get into the information, what's your overarching view, and what would you say to someone potentially like Mitch who is an iPhone user?
Yeah, well, I think the real issue here is that what the FBI wants is they want access to this one phone. And I think Apple's really engaging in some irresponsible, really putting some irresponsible rhetoric out there. The reality is I think they're trying to protect their brand, but this is national security we're talking about. We're talking about lives at stake. And so, Mitch quoted that minuscule number for us that it's actually going to affect. So I think the government has a great case here. I think Apple needs to. I think they're trying to make a show out of it, but Apple needs to just do the responsible thing and cooperate with the government in this situation. I'm not saying every single situation they should cooperate with the government. I'm not saying the government is always in the right, but in this situation, it's time for Apple to step up and do what they need to do.
So what, in your opinion, has Apple come out and said that you deem irresponsible?
Well, they just make it sound like the government wants access to everyone's phones, and that's simply not true. That's probably the most irresponsible thing. They're putting, it sounds nice what they're saying, but they're not really revealing the whole truth of what's going on. It makes it sound like, Mitch's iPhone and my iPhone and everyone else's iPhone is just going to get, the government's going to be looking at it, and that's just not the case.
Well, there is that point, Ryan, that Alex Abdo, from the staff lawyer from the American Civil Liberties Union, he's quoted as saying, if the government prevails on this decision, then there is nothing to stop them from turning every major tech company into a tool of government surveillance. So there is the idea that some people think that if they get this one, then they will use it eventually for other phones. So there is a bit of a back and forth on that.
It has been used before, though. I mean, the government issues warrants all the time to check people's phones, so it's not like this is a brand new thing.
Right.
So I think, as long as the government has a warrant and they go through all the legal procedures, it's their responsibility, Apple's responsibility, to help to work with the government here. And again, we're not talking about the government wants to, read your private emails or text messages. They want to see information that could compromise national security, whether it's plans for a terrorist attack in the United States, communication with terrorists overseas. These are serious questions we're dealing with.
Now, I've read a few articles saying that it looks like this could actually go all the way to Supreme Court because both Apple and the government are going back and forth. So really quickly, in 30 seconds, what do you think, if this makes its way to the Supreme Court, what do you think is going to come of it, Mitch?
Well, in the end, I think this is a decision that Congress has to decide. And I think if it gets that far, I believe that at least for this the San Bernardino case and cases like that, when it involves terrorist information, I think the government's going to win out on that. As far as the future and a lot of government being able to take any phone, I don't think that's going to be the case. But for this specific situation, I think the government wins out.
All right, and Tyler?
Yeah, Supreme Court. If it goes to the Supreme Court, I'm not going to say, the Supreme Court is right now 4-4, 4 conservatives, 4 liberals. So chances are votes would be along that line. I'm not exactly sure what would happen, but I do believe the government will prevail in this case because they are, in my opinion, correct. They're in the right here.
All right, well, another interesting topic, and I think this one's gotten a lot more nationwide attention because of iPhone is everywhere, but we'll see what happens, and I do think this will make its way to the Supreme Court. So we'll be right back after this as we're going to go to Mitch Ross with our latest on elections.
Thank you. You got a king?
Go fish! In your face! In your face!
The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Take time to be a dad today.
You can't do anything right.
Stupid.
You're the biggest
Just
moron
give up.
I know.
Stop trying. There's no point to it. You're never going
What
to
is
be
wrong
anything.
with you? Why even bother? I mean, you won't amount to anything.
You're a failure. Trash.
Just give up.
You're worth nothing. You will never amount to anything. You are not worth anything.
It's time for one of our favorite topics to discuss here on the Waynesburg Effect as we dive into the world of elephants and donkeys. Yes, it's politics time, and more specifically, it's time for a round of campaign catch-up. The race for the White House is as heated as ever. On the Democratic side, many people are feeling the burn, or others have climbed aboard the Hillary train. On the Republican side, the question is, can anyone trump the current leader? Super Tuesday has come and gone, and it's clear who the front runners are. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton certainly didn't win their party's nominations this week, but they both became much harder to beat. Trump racked up wins in 7 states to Ted Cruz's 3 and Marco Rubio's 1, and Clinton defeated Bernie Sanders in 7 of the 11 Democratic contests. A lot we can discuss here, gentlemen, but first, let me ask you, Ryan, is Donald Trump on the Republican side, can he be stopped now with all this momentum he has?
Well, of course. I mean, it's always possible that someone can be stopped. I mean, we're even hearing the discussion right now that possibly if Donald Trump gets the amount of delegates, well, he could still be stopped at the convention. So I think there's nothing that a little bit of will and eagerness won't solve. However, I think Republicans are now starting to kind of realize that, hey, this isn't just something he's going to win 1 state, he's going to win 2 states, he's going to win 3 states. No one has won the diversity of states that Donald Trump has, from New Hampshire to South Carolina to Arkansas, ever in at least in several decades. So people are already saying something's going on here, and especially if you are I'll call him an actual conservative, or anyone in this part of the establishment, you are like, what the freak is going on right now? And Governor Romney recently came out, our 2012 Republican candidate, and pretty much slammed Trump, saying that he's not trustworthy, he shouldn't be the candidate, and that voters should look at all of the other options and choose one of them instead. So I always just find it amusing, just a quick flashback. Ronald Reagan, one of the better presidents we've ever had, his 11th commandment was, "Thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican." And I think we've seen this campaign cycle, that has gone down the toilet and is not coming back up ever again.
I think that's gone down for quite a while.
It's gone down for quite a while, and especially when Donald Trump is willing to praise Hillary Clinton, but say George W. Bush is an awful president. That's definitely against the 11th Commandment. But I will say, quick, we do need to make sure that I think we need to follow the Buckley rule, which is that the most keyword, electable candidate should be chosen.
Okay.
Donald Trump might be casting himself as the most rightward, but he is certainly not the most electable.
Mr. Schwartzberg, you said a lot there. We're gonna let Tyler speak here. If Donald Trump can be stopped, who's going to stop him?
Well, he's not going to be stopped in the primaries.
Okay.
If he's going to be stopped, he's going to be stopped at the convention.
Okay,
it's going to be the RNC.
I'll take this a different way then.
Yeah.
If he is the Republican nominee, how does that change the Republican Party in your mind?
Well, in my opinion, what would need to happen then is I would hope the Republican Party would kind of reevaluate itself. What I would like to see is a conservative party, the party of Cruz. What I would argue is the party of Trump. Mr. Schwarzenegger would disagree. Yeah. Cruz, Trump. I would like to see them form a party further to the right, and I would like a middle of the road party to emerge with fiscal and economic conservatism, but then with social liberalism. Mm-hmm. I think that's where the Republican Party has really failed. Is they fight so much for things like gay marriage and abortion that the good parts of their message really just no one pays attention to them.
But then doesn't that split the party in half, and then neither side wins?
No, because the conservatives, a moderate's not going to vote for Ted Cruz or Donald Trump, but they will vote. There are plenty of moderate Democrats who would vote for a middle-of-the-ground party. And so it doesn't really split the party. It splits the party, but then it also introduces new voters to that middle party that would not vote for the Republican Party otherwise.
But then again, how many times have the conservative voters been told, you have to select a moderate if you want to win the election? We did that with Romney. We did that with McCain. Both times they lost.
And it's your fault that they lost because you were not excited. Conservatives were not excited about the election. They did not get out and vote. They did not get out the vote. And that's why President Obama has been president twice. The first time in 2008, everyone had Bush fatigue. Fine. But 2012, the conservatives, first of all, pulled Romney to the far right in the primary. Romney tried to realign himself to the middle, and it just didn't work. So I would actually say the conservatives are to blame for some
So
of the
then what makes you think a moderate's going to win?
Because a moderate would be able to truly say what they want to say and not have to pander to the conservatives in the primary.
Well, Ryan, let's change sides here. We've been talking for most of the segment here about the Republicans. Let's look at the Democratic side and give them their fair share. Hillary Clinton, as I said, won 7 of the 11 Democratic states on Super Tuesday. She looks to be the front runner. Do you think that she's going to get the nomination?
I think it's still fairly likely she will, but the problem is for Hillary Clinton is if she does not start wrapping this up and at least convince other Bernie supporters that she is going to be the candidate, she's going to have some trouble down the road. She did really well in all of those southern states because that's where a lot of her base is. She does well with the African American and the minority groups. However, a lot of the states that are still to come are more the northern states where Bernie Sanders is supposed to be doing well. So if Bernie Sanders does not start doing well in these states that we have coming up, it's going to be Hillary. But if Bernie does do well or exceedingly well, this could go a lot longer. And Bernie's got the money to do it.
Right. Your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of Bernie's weakness is that many of his supporters are young and they're not necessarily going out to vote. Sometimes they are, but not always. I think Hillary Clinton, as long as she doesn't do anything, make a really foolish decision, I think she's got this, pretty easily.
Yeah. Real quick, Ryan, I just want to get your thoughts in 20, 30 seconds about your state's governor of New Jersey supporting Donald Trump.
Yeah, I was slightly surprised, not uber surprised. I thought maybe because Christie, current governor and former chairman of the Republican Governors Association, I thought he probably would have gone to Jeb Bush or John Kasich. Obviously, Jeb Bush dropped out. John Kasich a little on ice. But I think Christie's also very much an opportunist. He wants to be vice president or he wants to be attorney general, so he has to go with the candidate that's going to win, and I think he thinks that's Donald Trump.
Very interesting to see. I think every week a new headline comes up and something changes in the race. So as time goes on, it'll be fun to see how the election pans out. But don't go anywhere here on the Waynesburg Effect. When we come back, we'll talk about the water crisis, in Flint, Michigan. We'll be right back.
Oh, sweet, pizza. What the? Hey, how about you try this banana?
Gee, thank you.
No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
If you be good to your body, it will be good to you. Make smart choices when selecting what you will eat. Visit choosemyplate.gov for more information on the best foods to bring out the best you.
For years now, a public health crisis tied to the public water supply has been brewing in Flint, Michigan. But only within the last few months has the crisis received national attention. From presidential candidates to celebrities to journalists, Flint's public water catastrophe has slowly entered into the national conscience. Before we proceed into a discussion, I would like to give a brief summary of the crisis. However, to really understand it, one must go back many years. For years now, the city of Flint, Michigan has been besieged by economic hardship and high crime rates. Since the early 2000s, Flint has been afflicted by financial hardship, a fact that was only exacerbated in 2008 with the collapse of the American auto industry. Since then, the city has been labeled one of the most violent cities in America, and its population is largely black, poor, and feeling forgotten. This brings us to April of 2014, when the state, which was in charge of the city's budget due to another financial crisis, switched the public water source from Lake Huron to the infamously disgusting Flint River. Many residents complained that the water was dirty, smelly, and not fit for human consumption. Virginia Tech researchers later confirmed residents' suspicions that the water from the Flint River was corrosive. In fact, the corrosive water had ate away at Flint's water pipes, causing lead to enter into the water supply. The state switched the water supply back to Lake Huron, but the damage had already been done. Today, Flint is a city in crisis, with this latest health crisis only one of many that continue to ravage the city and its citizens. So, this event, guys, seems to really confirm many concerns of the Black Lives Matter movement. 56% of Flint's population is African American, and there's a quote on the Black Lives Matter website that says, it discusses how more than 40% of residents in Flint, Michigan are living below the poverty line, how more than 50% are black. And so I'll throw this to Mitch first, and then Ryan, I'd like you to answer the same question. Do you think this crisis confirms the fears of the Black Lives Matter movement, or do you think there's no connection here at all?
I mean, if you get down to the nitty-gritty, there might be some connections, but when I just look at this on the base level, I don't see a connection. I think that we just, that's been a hot topic, Black Lives Matter movement, and, there's serious concerns about those types of things, but I feel like, for this specific incident, this is just government mismanagement. Sometimes there is just bad decisions. And I don't even think it was the decision necessarily to move the water supply, but I read about the fact that they decided to use an old Flint plant. That was where the lead was coming into the water through that old plant. If they would have just, went to a newer plant or created a new plant to filter the water through, it might have been okay. So, I can see where you might say, there's a deeper issue here. But I think that this is just simply a bad decision from the government in Michigan and nothing more.
Okay, Ryan, what do you think?
I would agree. I don't think it's certainly a Black Lives Matter thing. I mean, if you think about it, there are pipes in New York City right now that are from the late 1800s and early 1900s, and they really need to be replaced. A lot of the infrastructure across the country is old and does need to be replaced. And part of the reason, yes, part of it was the water wasn't the best, but they said that it was the corrosive that made the pipes break down, and I'm sure those pipes were plenty old, which made it a lot easier for these pipes to corrode. And I think this is part of an issue in terms of how are we spending our money as a government. Is there places that we're spending that we shouldn't, and we should devote it towards national infrastructure, not even just water lines, but power lines and other things of the sort that are good not for specific communities, but for all Americans.
Okay, well, kind of going off the thought of government mismanagement here, the Flint River is notoriously toxic and filled with waste and other chemicals that should not be consumed by humans. So let's say, theoretically, Flint, Michigan was a suburban, up-and-coming middle-class city, middle-class neighborhood. Do you think the same decision would have been made to move it to move the water supply from Lake Huron to the Flint River, or do you think they wouldn't have done that in that situation? I'll ask.
I think it's certainly possible. Because the reason why they moved it was because of the financial situation that the city was in. We can get into a whole other debate as to how they got to that place in the first place. But I'll give an example from where I am. Our town uses well water back home, and they want to put in a pipeline that cuts through a portion of our town. And the big concern is if this pipeline leaks, it goes right into the water, and since we have well water, it would directly affect our drinking water, which is a sole source aquifer. Now, not exactly the same situation, but it's a concern that we have in a suburban community that this pipeline could be put in that seems going to be great. I'm in favor of putting in pipelines as opposed to doing it by barges or trains because I think it's a lot safer. But still, the problem is it leaks, it affects our drinking water, which not only affects suburban communities, but then a lot of the drinking water that New York City gets also comes from our region. So this would be a whole area problem. So I think it's not just specifically something for Flint that we're seeing it, just because they're African Americans and minorities, that's the reason why they made this decision. I think it's just a general decision in terms of they had to do what they could because of the financial situation they were in. And I think maybe now that they're seeing how those decisions panned out, they'll think a little bit differently next time.
Well, real quick, you're the political guy here, giving us all the ins and outs of that decision in Flint, but I'm an optimistic guy. And real quick, a silver lining, when President Barack Obama declared a state of emergency in January in Flint, Michigan, members of the Washington Redskins defensive line, led by Terrence Knighton, gathered over 4,000 water bottles, and then with celebrities helping them, they gathered over 200,000 water bottles for Flint, Michigan during the crisis. So kudos to people like that doing things to help in a time of need.
Yeah, I think it is a good, discussion about the infrastructure. I'd probably disagree with you a little bit on some of the points. I don't think that this inappropriate decision would have been made if it was a different situation. But I do think it brings up a good question about our infrastructure, but we're going to have to end it there. And so coming up, we will have our lighthearted stories to end the show.
Oh, look, a redhead.
Staring contest.
You still got it.
I know.
Come alive with the forest.
The dad was cute.
You were looking right at us.
Visit discovertheforest.org to find a forest near you.
They said I couldn't dream. called me a piece of trash and swore that's all I'd ever be. Said a bottle couldn't see the ocean. Give up. Go back to the dumpster. But I didn't listen. I made my way. And now, I am what I've always wanted to be.
Welcome back to the Waynesburg Effect. It's time for our fun, more lighthearted segment. So I want to start off by sending out well wishes to Yoko Ono, the wife of famous Beatle John Lennon. She was actually rushed to the hospital recently with flu-like symptoms, but thankfully she's back in her New York City apartment. Everyone knows it's the Dakota. She's resting very comfortably, and her son Sean Lennon was very grateful for everyone's support. But there were also some rumors that were going around that he downplayed, dismissed, that Yoko had actually suffered a stroke. But just like his father, like son, he had a little bit of snark and humor. He sent out a tweet saying the only stroke that Yoko Ono had was a stroke of genius. So a little clever. People know that I'm a big Beatles fan. Yoko Ono's obviously getting up there in age, but I'm glad that she is doing well and not too much harm.
Good.
That's good. Good.
So, Tyler, what do you have for us?
I have a story about a baby elephant and a sheep. A baby elephant was rescued from a drainage well in South Africa last month. Has a new surrogate mother, a sheep named Lammy. The baby elephant was originally named Bella after its rescue in February, but was redubbed Amanzi, the Zulu word for water, after his gender was correctly identified. The Hoedspruit Endangered Species Center shared video on its Facebook page of Amanzi bonding with his surrogate mother, a sheep named Lammy. Lammy is no stranger to the adoption life, having previously played mother sheep to orphaned rhinos at the sanctuary. The facility said Amanzi has suffered some health problems since his rescue in early February, including occasional trouble eating. However, Amanzi is now doing very well.
Aww.
So the animal stories always touch at the heart.
Yes. Of course, always got to go for the feels.
Yes.
With the animal stories.
Yes. So what do you have for us?
I'll take a trip to Hollywood here. And the long wait is finally over. Leonardo DiCaprio has won an Oscar. The 41-year-old actor took home the Academy Award for Best Actor in a Lead Role for his work in the film The Revenant. The man who burst onto the scene as a young Jack in the Titanic took us on a journey into the dream world during Inception and showed off his colorful vocabulary in The Wolf on Wall Street, has finally taken home one of the industry's top prizes. After years of worthy performances, Leo, can I call him that? Leo was able to grace the stage and have a moment in the spotlight. And as he accepted the award, he went up to the stage and what did Mr. DiCaprio say? Well, of course, he talked about climate change. Wait, what? Climate change? In a moment where DiCaprio could have reflected on his career, his family, and so on, he chose to talk about global warming. Now, I'm not here to talk about the environment or say one side or the other. I'm just here to point out a simple fact. Celebrities love to give you their viewpoint any chance they get and stand up for a cause. Need I point out to our last show when we talked about that Super Bowl halftime show? Whether they have earned the right or not is not my debate. But it is safe to say this. It's just another example that when you give someone a mic, there's a good chance they're going to tell us what they're thinking.
Very interesting. I've been to a few Chris Christie town halls, and there's actually a clip online if you want to look it up quick. He always gives his 4 rules, and one of them is, as soon as you hold the microphone in the hand, you feel this interesting feeling that you just have to go on and give a speech.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So.
You just have to endorse Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Is that the moral of the story? Donald Trump?
No.
We leave? No? Okay, that's right.
But hey,
that's good. That's good.
But good for Leonardo DiCaprio. It was a great
right.
performance in The Revenant.
That's
good
right.
job.
So thank you for sharing,
You're
Mitch,
welcome.
and thank all of you for joining us here on the Waynesburg Effect. Join us next time here with the 3 of us. Actually, will you be here? I think you'll be here. Either
perhaps.
we'll have Mr. McCoy or we'll have Mr. Stanko back. But always good to have Tyler and Mitch here, and thank you for watching.